structure of government programs, the entitlement programs, lend itself to abuse? That's what we're discussing today on the Opinion Talk Show, the talk show where your opinions matter. I am Mirna Santiago, and joining me for our discussion today is my co-host, Adeline Ortiz, and our guest, Professor Tyrone Simpson.
Welcome, Tyrone.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I can't wait to tackle this topic because it's one that's really near and dear to my heart. I think you know it's going to be a great discussion. But I do believe that we had some comments on the internet. Was it YouTube or our website? You know, people are really starting to respond.
Yes. Well, there's one comment from Nick that I actually want to mention because he got in touch with us after our last show, which was our lightning round, where we discussed why is it that men of color, especially successful ones, invariably end up marrying white women. And Nick said to us, he said, I remember in the 70s and the 80s, white women were upset that successful white men were marrying Asian women. And the reason they said was because Asian women were submissive. So he says at any point in time, there are always one group of women complaining that their men are leaving them to go with another group of women. And he said, can we maybe just agree that people are going to be attracted to whatever they're attracted to, and being that it's 2014, they are entitled to do that. And I have to agree with Nick on that one. And after we taped the show, actually, I kind of thought to myself, you know what, it was a missed opportunity to kind of say, in this day and age, we really perhaps should not be having this discussion, especially since I myself am one half of an interracial couple. So, but you know, we kind of got into it, and it was an interesting discussion all the same. But thank you, Nick, for sending us your thoughts on that, and please keep writing to us and giving us your opinions. So with election season coming up, the discussion has turned to whether the federal government and President Obama has done enough to curb what is perceived as abuse of the so-called entitlement programs. Conservatives want to see sweeping reforms of everything. They want drug testing for welfare recipients. They want drug testing for people who are receiving unemployment benefits. They want limits on workers' compensation benefits. They want proof that government workers, especially the ones that are retired on disability, are actually entitled to those and they're not faking their injuries. And they want to do away with affirmative action. So we're going to start with you, Adeline, because our question is, does the structure of government programs actually encourage the abuse that conservatives are complaining about?
I think the short answer is yes. I agree. I can't say that I wholeheartedly would disagree with the conservatives on this one. I think that certain programs, not all, certain programs do encourage abuse. I think particularly we do need to look at the welfare system. We do need to consider welfare reform. We do have to consider the guidelines for receiving welfare benefits. I feel very strongly about that particular government benefit because I personally know people, even some members of my extended family, who have received welfare benefits for decades. It's outrageous. I mean, absolutely no one should be permitted to stay on the welfare system and to receive all of this money for all of this period of time. So it does need to be looked at very carefully. And there does have to be, I think, some guideline and there has to be an end date. It can't be just a forever free check that you're going to receive. Now, I do think that we need to distinguish, though, between welfare benefits and unemployment benefits, workers' compensation, and disability benefits, all of which go really to people who were formally employed and who worked hard to earn those benefits and have either become the victims of a failing economy, as we have now many hardworking people and professionals who are out of work by the tens of thousands across the United States who will be cut off of their unemployment benefits in 6 months, whether or not they have a job. To me, that's insane. When you have someone who is an alcoholic or drug addict who is allowed to stay on the welfare system for 20, 30 years, but you're going to cut off that person, that hard-working person who wants to work, who did work, and who has become a casualty of a failed economy from his unemployment benefits in 6 months. To me, that's absolutely a tragedy, and so something does have to be done. We do have to look at welfare reform. We do have to carefully consider abuses of the system. In some ways, I think that the system is set up to sort of encourage that abuse. because they basically really don't look carefully enough at the people who are receiving it and whether they're able to get back to work or get them into rehabilitation programs or whatever it is that's necessary to get done to get people back into the workforce. I don't think that we're really doing enough, and we're just kind of allowing it to continue. But before I just go crazy on this subject, I'm just going to let you have this, Tyrone. What do you think?
Well, my answer is actually no. I think that federal governmental benefits have put people through college. I think it has paid for people's homes. I think it's paid for soldiers who return from the field of battle and put them through their lives. And so my concern is that apparently the political leadership wants to look at the people who are really receiving very little of government government support. That is, only a third of government support goes to the poor. My concern is that we don't look at bigger issues, right? Bigger issues where the federal government is supporting. So, for instance, we still haven't thought carefully enough about the Iraq War and its aftermath, the war in Afghanistan and its aftermath, right? And so, what troubles me is that the scrutiny, the critical gaze, is directed at people who have nothing and really need our support, rather than looking at places where there is power, right? And I think that this is the case, particularly because of what happened in the 1980s. Before the 1980s, we encountered the New Deal. We encountered the Great Society, right, where it was understood that government had to support people in order to get them on their feet and get them into prosperity, right? And so we built suburbs. We had job training, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the attitude has changed, and the attitude has changed because of the 1980s and how Republican rhetoric linked government support with people of color, particularly African Americans, particularly African American females who seem to be hyper procreative, seem to be drug takers, seem to be not looking for a job. And it was an amazing rhetorical ploy that seemed to work. And I'm concerned that ploy still works, and we haven't been able to think our way out of this bind that Republican rhetoric has put us in.
Well, I don't see the programs themselves as encouraging the abuse. I think it's the people. I think any system where you rely on the honor system, which is what we do with our public assistance programs here in the United States. We definitely rely on people to not apply for the benefits unless you need them. We rely on people not to lie on their applications. I was on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and there was a picture of one of my Facebook friends, and he had a wad of $100 bills. I mean, like thousands of dollars in $100 bills that he was posting as a picture of himself. And somebody jokingly put in the comments, "Oh, it must be time to pay the rent," because it's kind of like, why else would you be, and this person responded, "Nah, man, Uncle Sam pays my rent," which I would be mortified to say, first of all, on social media. But beyond that, it was kind of, I felt it was sad because this is a person that I know, like I said, it's one of my Facebook friends, but not someone that I'm really close with, but I know for a fact he lives with his wife and 3 children. So as far as we know, being in his extended network, this is someone who works, his wife works, he has the 3 kids. So somewhere along the line, either, the wife has to be lying, or he's lying about either not working or that he's not around. So someone is lying in order to get Uncle Sam to pay their rent, which I find is the problem with our welfare system. So we rely on the honor system. We've always relied on the honor system, and it doesn't seem to be working. So to that extent, yes, I do feel that maybe we need to find a way to cross-reference certain things in terms of where is this person's check going. If you're saying that your husband is not around, but then there's someone who's filing taxes or what have you with your same address, there needs to be a way to cross-reference and check certain things, and the government hasn't done that because they're still relying on the honor system. Now, the other problem that I have, as you're saying, is there's corporate welfare, right? Because that's what I call the subsidies that we're giving big oil, that we're giving to the banks, the bailouts, and it's the same thing. The banks, when they got their bailout, the insurance companies, it was supposedly because the market was soft and the economy was failing, so we wanted to keep the jobs here. Did it keep the jobs here? No, it didn't. We still have outsourcing. You can't call a bank these days and get someone who works in the United States. You're getting, a Raj from Bangladesh who's answering your questions. So they're not keeping the jobs here. They're outsourcing it. And you talk about the insurance companies who gave themselves record bonuses with the bailout money. That is corporate welfare. So why aren't people marching in the streets about that? Why are you complaining because Shaniqua and Consuelo might have 2 kids and are on welfare when their benefits are almost nothing compared to that?
That issue of corporate welfare, that's a whole other show that we can really devote a lot of interesting time discussing, because I feel very strongly about the hundreds of thousands of jobs that are outsourced every year by major companies, and people really don't know anything about that. But that's a separate subject for a different day. With respect to Shaniqua and Consuela and whatever, I think that if you're in New York City or you work in the city, you live there, or anywhere in the surrounding counties. It's Shaniqua and Consuela that you're seeing. So when you're talking about, Republicans sort of tying these government benefits to minorities, well, if you look around you, and you live anywhere in New York City, work in New York City, this is really what you're seeing. You're seeing the Hispanics, you're seeing the African Americans with their 29 children, okay, on government benefits, okay, and you know what? And you do get resentful, and you do get bitter about it. Like I said, I'm Hispanic, and I have family members who've gone on to receive welfare benefits for years and years at a time and have children. I think that there have to be some realistic limits. Now, you raised a lot of interesting points too, Tyrone, with respect to the broad spectrum of government benefits, and really, when you discuss things like the war and education and so on, clearly not all of it has to be so dissected and investigated and looked at. But with respect to welfare, once again, there does need to be an investigative component. There does have to be some way to look for, if not the abuse, not encouraging abuse, well then discouraging fraud and fraudulent practices and fraudulent reporting. Like you said, the sort of cross review or investigation to look at discrepancies and inconsistencies, like I have absolutely no money, but then you have this man who's claiming your 5 children at the end of the year for the tax benefits. Well, now you're double dipping. Now, not only are you receiving the welfare benefits, but now you're also getting a tax break and benefit as a result of all of these children. So who's doing this investigation is the question. And if it's not really being done, then it needs to be done, because something has to be done. These are mine, yours, hard-earned tax dollars going away to people like this guy on Facebook who just waves it around and says, well, I don't have to worry about rent because Uncle Sam is taking care of that. So I just have this little wad of cash to go ahead and buy my kid the latest set of Jordans so he can go to school looking wonderful. Okay. There's definitely something absolutely wrong with it, but I think that we really kind of need to look at this from even a broader perspective. Really, the problem of welfare reform, and I'm really just on this issue, like, white on rice right now, right, as they say. But problem of welfare reform really has to start much earlier, at the middle school and high school grade levels, and really educating kids, those kids that are coming from so-called welfare homes right now, and perpetuating this horrible legacy that they're coming from their parents, and really, starting with early drug abuse or drug experimentation, pregnancy, low grades at school, domestic violence. There's a myriad of social issues that really have to be addressed very early on to avoid that lifetime of welfare benefits.
Well, from both of your comments, what I'm hearing is the theme of visibility, right? That is, first starting with the issue of Facebook, and I want to say, if you turn on the TV, we see multiple people flaunting their wealth. So I cannot blame. I cannot blame my man for showing around his cash, because that's the only place his flashing his cash is going to be visible. He's not going to get on TV, right? Okay. So what I mean, and visibility also was a concern in Adeline's comments, right? The people that you see, and I'm saying, first and foremost, if we really want to think carefully about what government's doing, we cannot rely on what we see,
No,
right?
I
That
agree.
is power and money flows invisibly, right? and so that's where we need to be concerned. Now, in terms of an autobiographical comment, I grew up in the projects, and the people that I grew up with, they were up early in the morning. Most of them were up early in the morning, getting up, going to jobs that didn't pay a great deal, but they were there. They were proud of what they did, put a lot of energy into it. There were some outliers who were too depressed to go pursue a job after a while, right? And then there were some who were hustling at all costs, right? And so they went into drug dealing, not drug taking, drug dealing, right? To make ends meet, right? But coming back to this issue of visibility, if we can think about how not only corporate welfare, not only governmental welfare, but also the ways in which the average American is supported by the government. So, for instance, in 2008, Cornell University interviewed 1,400 people, right, and asked them, "Have you ever received a government benefit?" 57% of them said no, right? And then they were read a list of 21 government programs that include education, that include housing, that include earned income tax credit, that included you writing off your child, et cetera, right? Once they heard that list, it turned out that 94% of the people who said they didn't receive government benefits had, right? And that's because they don't see how government's operating in their lives. So they don't see how, certainly if they don't see how government is operating in their lives, they certainly don't see how government is operating in other places, all right? So what I'm advocating for is a sense of a kind of really rigorous, critical understanding of what the government does, and not relying on visibility, because that's where we lose ourselves.
Good point.
Now, I want to ask you guys, I'm going to pivot a little bit and back to the original question, which was about drug testing for welfare recipients and also for people who are receiving unemployment benefits, because this is something that there's a drumbeat going on among the conservatives, among the Republicans, about the need to drug test these people who are sitting on welfare. And Tyrone, after we discussed the whole thing about drug testing, I actually want you to respond to Adeline's question or comment about the people who are generationally on welfare, the people who have been sitting on welfare for 29, 30 years. When welfare was first instituted, it was meant as a let's pick you up while you're down sort of program so that you're not starving and on the street. And there are people who have made a lifetime of just sitting on welfare. I also understand what you were saying about visibility, about what is it that we see, because whenever you turn on the news, when they're talking about entitlement programs, when they're talking about public assistance, they always pan to the projects or the brown people who are getting the benefits, when in fact 65 to 70% of all welfare benefits, not just the other public programs, those are given out to white people who are, most of them suffering from meth or heroin addiction. We also have very low employment rates in places like Tennessee and Mississippi, where again you have high drug addiction problems. So, Adeline, I want to talk to you a little bit about, I want you to talk a little bit about this drug testing. Is it a good thing?
Yes, absolutely. It shouldn't be free money. It shouldn't just be the government handing out this money so that you can, worse than just sort of sit on it forever, but actually use it to support your drug habit, enable drug addicts and alcoholics to continue to stay on the welfare benefits or on whatever government benefits that they're receiving, and never actually address the actual issue, the actual problem that they're dealing with. So there should be mandatory drug testing. There should be mandatory rehab programs if you are in a welfare or any type of government benefit program. Again, I want to distinguish between, the sort of government benefits that you just described as sort of long list, and workers' compensation, unemployment, and so on. Because, again, this is people who are working, who became unemployed for whatever reason, the failing economy or workers' compensation, disability, were injured on the job, and are now receiving benefits as a result of having been injured in the course of their work. I have a friend who's a professional, 10 years at the insurance industry, who just a few weeks ago had a slip and fall at work and had to sit home 3 days for workers' compensation to approve a painkiller. Sit home in pain with torn ligaments for 3 days until some bureaucratic creature decided that he's entitled to a painkiller, some sort of pain medication to help him deal with it. To me, that is absolutely insane. And yet, those welfare benefits, without question and to the minute, are put on however they receive them now, right? On some sort of bank card, electronically. People receive. They know beyond the shadow of a doubt that come the 1st or the 15th, that they are going to have their government benefits put on that card, and they can go do their groceries and pay their rent and do whatever they're going to, and they're okay with that. And yet you have a hard-working professional who just happened to slip and fall at work one day, sitting at home in agonizing pain, waiting 3 days just for workers' compensation to approve a pill. There's absolutely something wrong with the system.
Yeah. Well, okay, Tyrone, and we're running out of time for the main discussion, but I did want to give you a chance to talk.
No question. Okay, so well, first off, my memory is not serving as well, but I'm thinking that Clinton in 1996 with the Workfare Act, I thought he did away with ways in which people could stay on the welfare doles for a significant amount of time, but I could be wrong about that. But I get this. Well, okay. More broadly, this is not an entitlement society, right? And the reason I say that is in working in the city of Poughkeepsie, right? And I was a beneficiary of a lot of government programs as a kid in the inner city. That is, there were daycare centers, there were little leagues, et cetera, et cetera. At least in the city of Poughkeepsie, that's not there, right? The government is not providing certain types of services to make sure that kids grow up safe and have things to do, right? So this is not an entitlement society, and unfortunately, like I said, with Reagan rhetoric, we have been led to believe that there is. Now, in regards to drug taking and monitoring drug taking, I mean, I just come down on the side that whatever government support that the poor gets, it's not that large a sum of money, right? It doesn't break our bank, and frankly, I don't want government scrutinizing people's lives so closely. If they receive a benefit and they choose to they dispose of that benefit in ways that are unproductive to them, then it's unproductive to them and it's their loss. But it's not really, how can I say, it's not really hurting us. There are other larger benefits, larger disbursements that hurt the hard-working taxpayer, and that's what I'm trying to get across.
I got you.
That's a big picture right there.
It is. Now let's move on to our lightning round because we have run out of time for the main discussion. And the lightning round is, with the advent of gay marriage, we've heard a lot from politicians and religious leaders about what marriage is and what it should be, and how it was always meant to be between one man and one woman, and how if we accept gay marriage, will we open up now the floodgates to adultery and polygamy and other undesirable, quote unquote, situations. So, with or without gay marriage, it's up to you if you want to discuss it. Now, is it a time now to change our views on marriage and adultery and polygamy? And is it the time in our society now to start viewing marriage in a different way? So I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to go to Adam.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. First, I will say this, culture-wise. All the great literature, all the great television would not exist without adultery, right? Without some type of romantic transgression, right? That's why I know both of you watch, what is it, Scandal, right?
I know.
Exactly. All right. So with that said, the way I see it is this, that one, I'm anxious about, as I just said, I'm anxious about any time government gets too close into the private lives of people. The gay marriage became an issue because gay couples wanted the same types of benefits that heterosexual couples had in terms of sharing wealth, bequeathing wealth to children, managing their own welfare. And I think that demonstrates that marriage has always been about managing wealth, right? Managing where wealth flows, who it goes to, right? And just more liberally, before, when you're young, they tell you to go and play the field and date as many people as possible, have a whole bunch of fun. And then when you get to a certain age, they tell you that you need to find that fun in one person.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's ridiculous. It's romantic. It's not as humane as we think it might be.
Adeline.
Well, something definitely has to change. I mean, you do have to look closer at marriage. With the divorce rate being at 50% now, okay, you have all of these children growing up in single parent homes and so on. And even second marriages failing badly, whereas second marriages were at least succeeding by 80-90%. Even second marriages are looking at lower success rates. Definitely something has to change. I'm so sick and tired of everybody pinning, the issue on gay marriage and gay this. It's like, stop it already. Just stop it. It's so ridiculous already. I have a lot of great gay friends who I adore and respect. And if they can have successful marriages, great. They don't sleep in my bedroom. I don't sleep in their bedroom. Let's just all stay out of each other's bedroom and mind our own business and let them have their happy lives or right to be miserable with the rest of the married people, right?
Yeah.
Right? You have a right to be miserable, whatever it is. But I think anybody who can have a successful and happy marriage these days that should actually absolutely do it. And if you find your happiness with a camel, hey, go for it.
Whatever. It really cracks me up when people start talking about their opposition to gay marriage, and they're talking about it's in the Bible. Well, I have news for people who say that, because in the Bible there's incest, there's adultery,
Right.
there's polygamy, there's all kinds of stuff going on in the Bible. And that's just the people who were God's chosen ones, like David was not a good person. I mean, he was covetous, he committed adultery, he had all of these children outside of his marriage. So it's not, I don't know where these people are getting this, that I am going to rely on the Bible for one man, one woman, because it's not there. That being said, I come from a society in Honduras which is not sanctioned polygamy, but it's just accepted. It's something that my father, for instance, has several brothers and sisters, and by the same father, different mothers. And they're all very close, the siblings, and the father was always present for those kids. They were always present. It's not like here, where we have, you could have an emotionally unavailable father, or he's not there, and there's only the one father and the one kid and the one wife. So I don't see where we're coming with this. We just have a serial monogamous relationship here instead of polygamy. But that's all. We are out of time for the opinion for this episode, and we just want to thank all of the viewers for writing to us, leaving comments on YouTube. Thank you so much, and we appreciate you for watching.